have a surprise for you, Mom, my son said with a grin that looked more like a mask than a smile. He handed me an envelope. I was still holding my champagne glass, still glowing from the shock of having won $5 million in the lottery only weeks earlier. My heart was full of joy, my cheeks still wet from happy tears. I thought maybe he had written me a letter of love, maybe a thank you for all the years I raised him alone after his father walked away. I thought maybe it was a family photo or even tickets to Hawaii. Something sweet. Something that said, "I love you, Mom." But when I opened the envelope, my hands trembled. Inside was not love. Inside was not joy. Inside was a debt notice. A debt of $800,000. My son's wife's debt. "You owe me this," she sneered, her eyes cold and sharp. "You've been living in our house, enjoying yourself, eating our food. You got rich while staying under our roof. Pay up, Grandma." I gasped. My knees almost buckled. "What? This isn't my debt. Why should I?" Before I could finish, she reached for her wine glass, lifted it high, and flung the red liquid right into my face. The cold sting of the drink mixed with the burn of betrayal. My son just sat there, watching, not defending me, not saying a word. My heart cracked into pieces. This was my boy, my only son. And now he was part of this cruelty. And that, my dear listeners, is how the story begins. But trust me, it only gets deeper, darker, and more shocking from here. Now, before I tell you how I even got here, let me slow down a little. My name is Margaret. I am 67 years old, and I live in Jacksonville, Florida. Yes, sunny Florida, where the beaches sparkle, the palm trees dance in the wind, and retirees like me play bingo at the community hall. But as you can see, my life has not been sunshine and calm waves. No, my life turned into a storm after that lottery win. Please, before we continue, make sure you subscribe, like, and click the notifications button so you don't miss any of my upcoming shocking stories. And tell me, from which part of the country are you watching this from? I'd love to know where my friends are tuning in. Now let me take you back to the beginning, so you understand how a grandmother like me ended up with champagne on her dress, a broken heart in her chest, and the very family she raised turning against her. It all started with a ticket. I never used to play the lottery. Never. I thought it was silly, a waste of money. But that day, I was at the gas station buying milk and bread when the cashier smiled at me. "It's your lucky day, ma'am. We've got new scratch-offs." I almost said no, but something in my gut whispered, "Do it, Margaret." So I bought one ticket. Just one. A $10 scratch-off. I slipped it into my purse and forgot about it until later that evening when I was sitting alone at my kitchen table. My life was simple then. I had nothing but my small pension and a box of family photos I loved to look through. My son and his wife had been kind enough to let me stay in their guest room after my arthritis made living alone too difficult. I was grateful, though sometimes his wife Karen made me feel like a burden. Anyway, I took a coin, scratched the ticket, and at first I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. The numbers matched. One by one they matched. Then at the bottom it said, "You have won $5 million. I dropped the coin. My heart stopped. I rubbed my eyes, picked up the ticket again and screamed. The neighbors must have thought I'd lost my mind. But no, I had found a miracle. After years of loneliness, brokenness, and counting pennies at the grocery store, life had finally smiled at me. But sometimes, dear listeners, blessings turn into curses. First it was pure joy. I told my son David and he hugged me. "That's amazing, Mom. We'll celebrate." But when Karen heard, her smile was thin, her eyes sharp. "Wow, lucky you," she said. Her voice was flat, like the joy wasn't real. I ignored it then. The first few days after the win, I made lists in my notebook. Things I would buy, people I would help. I wanted to pay for my granddaughter's college, donate to the local church, fix my old car, and maybe, just maybe, buy a little cottage by the beach. Nothing too fancy. Just something that would let me wake up to the sound of the ocean. But then the calls started. Old friends I hadn't spoken to in years. Cousins from faraway towns. Even neighbors I barely knew. Suddenly everyone remembered dear Margaret. And Karen? She turned into a hawk. She watched me every second. She would peek into my room, check my mail, and once I even caught her trying to peek at my bank statements. Still, I tried to keep peace. I thought my son would protect me, stand by me. But little by little, I saw the change in his eyes. He started asking questions. Mom, how much exactly do you plan to keep for yourself? You know you owe us for living here all this time. I laughed nervously, thinking he was joking. But I would soon learn that greed was no joke. One night, I heard them whispering in the kitchen. Karen's voice was sharp. She's old, David. She doesn't need all that money. We deserve it. Think of what we could do. And then David's low voice. I know. We'll get it out of her. I froze in the hallway, my heart pounding. My own son. Plotting against me. That's when the fear began to creep in. I started hiding parts of my winnings in different accounts. I made an appointment with a lawyer. But Karen was quicker than I thought. And so, we circle back to that night, the night of the party where the envelope was handed to me. The night she threw wine in my face. The night my son betrayed me with silence. But that wasn't even the worst of it. No, the true nightmare came after. Because when I wiped the wine off my cheeks, when I looked at my son and whispered, "Why?" he finally spoke. His voice was cold, distant. "Mom, if you don't pay this debt, we'll make sure you regret it." And that, my dear listeners, is where I'll leave you for now. Because what happened next will chill you to your bones. Mom, if you don't pay this debt, we'll make sure you regret it. Those words cut deeper than any knife. I looked at my son, my David, the boy I had raised with bedtime stories, the boy whose scraped knees I had bandaged, the boy I had worked 3 jobs to send to college, and I couldn't recognize him anymore. His eyes were hard, cold, almost like a stranger's. Karen smirked beside him, swirling the last of her wine as if she had already won. The party chatter around us carried on, laughter and music filling the air, but in that moment, the world grew quiet. It was just the 3 of us in that storm. I tried to steady my voice. "David, I am your mother. How can you even?" But Karen cut me off. "Don't play the victim, Margaret. You've lived under our roof for free. You eat our food, use our electricity. You owe us. And now that you're a millionaire, it's time to pay back. My debt is your debt. Family, right? Family." The word felt poisoned on her lips. I wanted to scream, to throw the glass back in her face, but my old hands shook. Instead, I whispered, "No, I will not pay your debts. That money is not yours." Karen's smirk fell. For the first time that night, she looked rattled. But before I could feel even a flicker of victory, she slammed her glass onto the table, the sharp crack silencing the room. Everyone turned. In one swift motion, she snatched the champagne bottle and poured it all over my lap. Gasps erupted. My dress was drenched, my pride shattered. David didn't stop her. He didn't even blink. He just looked at me with that same empty stare. I pushed myself up, the chair screeching against the floor. "You'll regret this," I whispered, my voice breaking, not from anger but from heartbreak. And without waiting for another word, I walked out, my wet dress clinging to my legs, my tears mixing with the wine. The night air outside was cold against my skin, but it was nothing compared to the frost in my chest. For the first time in my life, I felt truly alone. As I walked away from the party, one thought burned in my mind. They want to destroy me. My own son. My own family. If I don't act fast, I will lose everything, not just the money but my dignity, my safety, even my freedom. But I had no idea that the storm had only begun. Because the next morning, when I thought things couldn't get worse, I woke up to something that nearly knocked me off my feet. The next morning, I woke up with swollen eyes and a pounding headache. I had cried myself to sleep, something I hadn't done since I was a little girl. For a moment, I lay still in the bed, staring at the ceiling, telling myself maybe it was all a bad dream. Maybe David hadn't looked at me like I was nothing. Maybe Karen hadn't poured champagne on me in front of a room full of people. But when I turned my head and saw the crumpled, wine-soaked dress draped over the chair, the truth came back like a slap. I sat up, my chest tight. Then I noticed the envelope. The same cursed envelope Karen had forced into my hands the night before. It was sitting right there on my nightstand as if mocking me. I didn't want to open it again, but curiosity gnawed at me. With trembling fingers, I pulled out the papers. It wasn't just a single debt slip. It was a thick packet, full of loan documents, overdue credit cards, and threats from collection agencies. Karen had racked up nearly $800,000 in gambling, luxury shopping, and failed business ventures. The pages read like a confession of recklessness. At the bottom of one paper was a handwritten note in Karen's loopy handwriting. Since you got rich, this is your problem now. Don't forget who feeds you. My blood boiled. I had lived under their roof, yes, but I had never asked for luxury. I had cooked, cleaned, babysat my granddaughter, and given them money from my pension when bills were tight. And now they wanted to paint me as a parasite? I wanted to tear the papers up, but something in me said keep them. Evidence. Proof. I shoved the envelope into my bag just as a knock came at my door. It was David. Mom, he said, his voice low. We need to talk. I hesitated, searching his face for some sign of the boy I once knew. But all I saw was tension. His eyes darted, his jaw clenched. David, I whispered. How could you let her treat me like that last night? I am your mother. I gave you everything I could. He sighed and rubbed the back of his neck. Mom, you don't understand. Karen's under a lot of pressure. The debt collectors are calling every day. She's scared. I'm scared. We thought you'd help. Help? I cut him off. My voice shook, but not from weakness this time, from fury. Help is one thing. Being forced to pay off someone else's foolish debts is another. I will not do it. David's eyes hardened. Then don't expect this roof over your head anymore. My heart lurched. You'd throw me out? He looked away. You're not making this easy. You don't know what it's like to have collectors threatening you. They'll come for the house, Mom. For us. Something snapped inside me. You think I don't know hardship? I raised you alone, David. I worked myself to the bone so you could have a life. And this is how you repay me. For a moment, silence filled the room. I thought I saw guilt flicker in his eyes. But then his phone buzzed and he muttered, I have to go to work. Without another word, he left me sitting there, my heart breaking into pieces. That day, I packed a small bag. I couldn't stay in that house another night. Not after what they had done. Not after what David had said. I may have been old, but I still had pride. I called my old friend Helen, a widow who lived across town. She was shocked when she heard my story. Margaret, you don't deserve this. Come stay with me for a while. My guest room is always open. So I left. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't leave a note. I just slipped out with my bag and my envelope of evidence. At Helen's house, things were calm at first. She made me tea, tucked me into the cozy guest bed, and told me, rest. Tomorrow will be better. For the first time in weeks, I felt a little safe. I even smiled at the sound of birds singing outside the window. But peace doesn't last long when greed is at your doorstep. The very next morning, a car pulled up outside Helen's house. When I peeked through the curtain, my blood ran cold. It was Karen. She stormed up the path in her heels, pounding on the door like a furious queen. Helen opened it cautiously. Where's Margaret? Karen barked. Helen frowned. Who are you? I'm her daughter-in-law. And she has something that belongs to me. My stomach dropped. She knew. She knew I had the debt papers. Helen didn't back down. You need to leave. Margaret is my guest. And you will not come here screaming. But Karen shoved her way in, her perfume choking the air. Margaret, she shouted. I know you're here. Give me the envelope. I stepped into the hall, my knees weak but my back straight. Karen, get out. Now. She glared at me, her face twisted with rage. You think you're smart, hiding with your little friend? That money is mine, Margaret. If you don't hand it over, you'll regret it. Helen stepped between us. Enough. Leave, or I'll call the police. Karen sneered but finally turned and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. Helen locked the door, then turned to me, her face pale. Margaret, she's dangerous. You need to protect yourself. I nodded, clutching the envelope to my chest. But deep inside, I knew the truth. Karen wasn't going to stop. And sure enough, that night, as I lay awake in Helen's guest bed, I heard the sound of tires crunching on the gravel outside. I crept to the window, my heart hammering. What I saw made my blood freeze. It wasn't just Karen this time. It was David. And they weren't alone. They had brought 2 men with them, big, rough-looking men I had never seen before. They weren't here to talk. They were here to take something. Or someone. I pressed my hand against the cold window glass, my breath fogging it as I stared down at the driveway. The headlights of David's car cut through the darkness, and the two men standing beside him looked like shadows pulled out of a nightmare. Broad shoulders, tattoos creeping up their necks, fists clenched as if they were waiting for orders. Helen came up behind me. "Who is it?" she whispered. My lips trembled. "It's David. And Karen. And men I don't know." Helen peered out, then gasped softly. "Oh dear Lord. Margaret, this isn't good." Before I could respond, a heavy knock echoed through the house. It wasn't like Karen's pounding earlier. It was slower, louder, more threatening. "Mom!" David's voice rang out, cold and sharp. "We know you're in there. Open the door. Don't make this harder than it has to be." My knees went weak. Harder than it has to be? What did that even mean? Helen grabbed her phone. "I'm calling the police." But before she could dial, Karen's shrill voice cut through the night. "Margaret, give us the envelope or you'll regret this." The two men joined in, pounding on the door, rattling the frame so hard I thought it might come off its hinges. "Stop!" I cried, my voice breaking. "This is madness." There was silence outside for a moment. Then David spoke again, quieter this time, almost like a threat carried on the wind. "Last chance, Mom. Do the right thing." I turned to Helen, panic rising in my chest. "They'll break in. They'll take everything." Helen, bless her, stood firm. She raised the phone and finally dialed. "Yes, police," she said, her voice steady. "There are people outside my home threatening us. Please hurry." As she spoke, the pounding stopped. I peeked through the curtain again. David and Karen were retreating toward the car, the two men following. But before getting inside, Karen turned and pointed at me through the window. Her face twisted with fury, her finger like a dagger in the night. "This isn't over, Margaret," she shouted. "We'll get what's ours. Even if we have to take you down with us." The car roared to life, and within seconds they were gone. I collapsed onto the couch, my whole body shaking. Helen sat beside me, holding my hand tight. "You can't go back there," she whispered. "And you can't face this alone anymore. You need help. Real help." I nodded slowly, clutching the envelope like it was the only shield I had left. I didn't know what help meant yet, but I knew one thing. If I didn't fight back soon, they'd destroy me. And little did I know, the very next morning, I would find a letter slipped under Helen's front door. A letter that would change everything. The morning sun crept through the blinds, painting thin golden stripes across the guest room where I lay wide awake. Sleep had abandoned me hours ago. Every creak in Helen's house, every bark from the neighbor's dog had jolted me, my nerves frayed after the night before. When I finally swung my legs out of bed and shuffled into the hallway, I nearly tripped on something. At first I thought it was just the morning newspaper, but when I bent down my stomach dropped. It wasn't a newspaper. It was a plain white envelope. My hands trembled as I picked it up. No stamp. No address. Just my name scrawled in bold letters across the front. Margaret. I knew instantly who it was from. Helen walked in from the kitchen holding 2 mugs of coffee. "What's that?" she asked, concern already in her eyes. I didn't answer. I just tore the envelope open. Inside was a single sheet of paper, the handwriting unmistakable. "Karen's. You can run but you can't hide. We'll get what belongs to us. Think about your granddaughter. Do you really want her to grow up seeing her grandma dragged through the mud? Pay the debt, or things will get ugly." I nearly dropped the paper. My granddaughter, sweet little Emily, just 10 years old, with her bright smile and love for drawing. The thought of Karen dragging her into this nightmare made my blood boil. "They know where I am," I whispered. "They won't stop until they bleed me dry." Helen read the letter and set it down carefully, her lips pressed tight. "Margaret, this isn't just greed anymore. This is a threat. You need to go to the police." "I can't," I said quickly. "If David finds out, he'll turn Emily against me. Karen will spin it as though I'm the villain. And the police, what can they really do about family?" Helen placed her hand on mine. "This isn't just family business anymore. They brought men to my house last night. They're escalating. If you don't protect yourself, they'll ruin you." Her words rattled inside me. She was right, but fear still tangled around my heart. Later that day, I decided to take a walk to clear my head. The Florida sun was bright, the air heavy with humidity. I carried the envelope of debt papers in my bag, as if it were a lifeline. I stopped by a small park, sat on a bench, and pulled out the papers. As I scanned through them again, I noticed something I hadn't before. A signature line on one of the loan documents. Karen's name was there, of course, but next to it, David's. My heart sank. My son hadn't just stood by. He hadn't just watched. He had signed. He had been part of it all along. I clutched the papers to my chest, rocking slightly on the bench. Why, David? Why would you do this to me? The answer was simple but cruel: greed. That night, back at Helen's, I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Karen's smirk, David's cold stare, Emily's innocent face. I knew then that I had two choices. Either let them corner me like prey, or fight back like the mother who had survived worse storms before. The next morning, I made a decision. I called a lawyer. His name was Robert, an older man with silver hair and kind eyes. I explained everything: my lottery win, Karen's debt, the threats, the letter. He listened carefully, tapping his pen on the desk. "Mrs. Anderson," he finally said, "what your son and his wife are doing could fall under extortion. If they're threatening you to hand over money, that's a crime. You're not powerless here." Extortion, I whispered, tasting the word like bitter medicine. Robert nodded. "We can document everything. Keep those debt papers, the letter, and any messages they send. If they keep this up, we'll take it to court. And if they try to throw you out of the house, remember, you contributed to the household, and you have rights as a tenant. Don't let them bully you." For the first time in weeks, I felt a spark of hope. Maybe I wasn't as helpless as I thought. But hope is a fragile thing, and it didn't last long. When I returned to Helen's, she was waiting at the door, her face pale. "Margaret, you need to sit down." My stomach clenched. "What is it?" She handed me her phone. On the screen was a Facebook post from Karen. My heart stopped as I read it. Funny how some people win millions and suddenly forget their family. They'd rather see their son's family drown in debt than help. Greedy old women don't deserve blessings. Everyone will soon know the truth. The post had already been shared dozens of times, with comments piling up. Some were strangers, others people I vaguely knew from town. Is she really that selfish? Shame on her if it's true. What kind of mother refuses to help her own son? My hands shook as I lowered the phone. She's turning the whole world against me. Helen squeezed my shoulder. That woman is dangerous. She's trying to destroy your reputation. Tears burned in my eyes, but anger was stronger. I had survived a lifetime of struggles. I had clawed my way through poverty, heartbreak, and loneliness. I wasn't about to let a greedy daughter-in-law bury me in lies. "I'll fight her," I whispered. "I'll fight both of them. They'll regret underestimating me." But even as I said the words, a sharp knock sounded at the door. Helen and I froze. This time it wasn't Karen. It wasn't David. It was the police. "Mrs. Anderson?" the officer asked when Helen opened the door. His eyes settled on me. "We need you to come with us. There's been a complaint filed against you." I stared at the officer, my heart hammering so loud I could barely hear his words. "A complaint? Against me?" Helen stepped forward quickly. "Officer, what's this about?" The man adjusted his hat, his expression unreadable. "We received a report that Mrs. Anderson," he looked at me, "has been harassing her family and making threats to take their home and belongings unless she's paid money. We need her to come down to the station and answer a few questions." My mouth dropped open. That's a lie. I've never. But then I stopped. I knew exactly whose lie this was. Karen's. I clutched my bag to my chest, the envelope of debt papers inside. "Officer, please, you don't understand. It's the other way around. They've been threatening me." Helen's voice rose, sharp and protective. "She's telling the truth. Just last night they showed up here with two men, pounding on my door. I called the police. Did that get written down?" The officer flipped through his notes, frowning. "We have a record of a disturbance call, yes. But right now we're here because the son and daughter-in-law filed a formal complaint." I felt the room spinning. My own son. He had gone so far as to use the law against me. Helen touched my arm. Margaret, don't panic. Just tell them the truth. You have proof. I nodded shakily, pulling out the debt papers and the threatening letter Karen had left at the door. My hands shook as I held them out. Here. Please. Look. These are her debts. These are her threats. I'm the victim here. The officer glanced at the papers, then back at me. Alrit. Mom. We'll need to take these into evidence. You can come down voluntarily and give a statement, or we'll have to bring you in officially. My chest tightened. I had never been inside a police station in my life, not even for a parking ticket. But I wasn't going to let Karen win. I'll come, I whispered, standing straighter than I felt. Helen grabbed her purse. I'm coming too. She's not doing this alone. As the officer led us outside, I saw neighbors peeking from their curtains, whispering. I knew what they were thinking. The greedy old lottery winner finally got herself in trouble. The humiliation burned worse than the fear. But beneath the shame, a fire was starting to grow. Karen thought she could destroy me. David thought he could scare me. But I had lived too long, survived too much, to let their lies finish me. Still, as the police car pulled away, one question echoed in my mind like a drumbeat. What if the system believed them, instead of me? The ride to the police station felt like an eternity. The air inside the patrol car was heavy, every tick of the clock on the dashboard stabbing at my nerves. Helen sat beside me, her hand resting gently on mine. But even her presence couldn't calm the storm inside my chest. When we finally arrived, the officer led us through glass doors into a bright, sterile lobby. The scent of disinfectant hit my nose, mixed with the faint smell of burnt coffee. I had seen police stations on TV, but being inside one as a suspect was something else entirely. My stomach knotted so tight I thought I might be sick. They led me to a small interview room. White walls, a metal table, 2 plastic chairs. A camera mounted in the corner blinked red. It felt like stepping into a cage. A different officer came in, a woman this time. She had kind eyes, but her tone was firm. Mrs. Anderson, my name is Detective Harris. We've received a complaint from your son and his wife, stating that you've been harassing them, demanding money and threatening to ruin their lives. I'd like to hear your side of the story. The word sliced through me. Harassing? Demanding money? It was upside down. I wanted to scream. They're the ones harassing me. But instead I took a deep breath. Detective, my son's wife Karen is the one in debt. She owes nearly $800,000 from gambling and shopping. I won the lottery recently and ever since they've been pressuring me to pay her debts. I refused. That's when the threats started. I slid the envelope across the table. The debt papers. The threatening letter Karen had left at Helen's house. My hand shook as I added. They even came to my friend's home last night with 2 men. Big men. Intimidating. They pounded on the door and threatened me if I didn't pay. Detective Harris leafed through the papers carefully, her brow furrowing. She paused at Karen's letter, reading it twice. These are serious accusations, she said finally. And this letter does read like a threat. Did you keep the envelope it came in? Yes, I said quickly. It's in my bag. No stamp, no address. They hand-delivered it. Harris nodded, jotting notes. That supports your claim. Do you have any messages, texts, voicemails, from them pressuring you? I bit my lip. No. They never put it in writing. Only in person. Her pen stopped. She looked up at me. That makes it harder. Without clear proof, it becomes one person's word against another's. But these documents, she tapped the letter and debt slips, are a start. The door creaked open, and another officer leaned in. Detective, the complainants are here. My stomach dropped. Karen and David. I could hear their voices down the hall before I saw them. Karen was loud, dramatic, already weaving her web of lies. She's unstable. She's been manipulating us ever since she won. She promised she'd help with the debt, then turned against us. When they entered the room, Karen's face was painted with fake sorrow, but her eyes glittered with malice. David stood beside her, looking tired, but not enough to stop him from going along with her act. Mom, he said softly, like he was rehearsing for the audience. Why are you doing this to us? We're your family. My throat burned. Family doesn't blackmail family. Family doesn't threaten their own mother with strange men in the middle of the night. Karen gasped, clutching her chest. Blackmail? Threats? Detective, you see how she twists things. We just asked for help, like any son and daughter-in-law would. She's the one making threats. The detective raised a hand. Enough. You've both made serious accusations. Until we sort this out, I suggest you all keep distance from one another. She turned to me. Mrs. Anderson, do you have somewhere safe to stay? Yes, I said quickly. With my friend Helen. Karen smirked. Safe. Please. She's probably hiding more money over there. She knows she owes us, detective. That's why she's running. I wanted to leap across the table, to wipe that smug look off her face, but Helen's hand on my shoulder kept me grounded. After an hour of back and forth, Detective Harris ended the interview. Here's what will happen. We'll keep these documents. If you receive further threats, call us immediately. For now, there's not enough evidence to charge anyone. But Mrs. Anderson, be cautious. And Mr. and Mrs. Anderson, if we discover you've been making false reports, there will be consequences. Karen's smile faltered at that. Just a flicker, but I saw it. When we left the station, the sun was setting, painting the sky in streaks of red and orange. It should have been beautiful, but my heart was heavy. On the ride back to Helen's, she spoke softly. Margaret, you have to protect yourself. Get a restraining order. Move your winnings into accounts they can't touch. Don't wait for them to strike again. I nodded, though my mind was racing. I knew Helen was right, but deep down I also knew Karen wasn't finished. She was like a snake. Once she had tasted blood, she wouldn't stop until she had swallowed me whole. That night, as I sat in Helen's living room, I prayed for strength. I thought of Emily, of her bright eyes and the way she always ran into my arms when she saw me. I couldn't let Karen's poison reach her. But just when I thought the worst was behind me, another blow came crashing down. Helen was clearing the mail from her porch when she froze, her face pale. Margaret, she whispered, carrying in a large yellow envelope. This was in the mailbox. I opened it slowly, my hands trembling. Inside were photographs. Dozens of photographs. Of me. At the park. At the grocery store. Walking into the lawyer's office. Someone had been following me. Watching me. And at the bottom of the stack was one final photo. My granddaughter, Emily, playing in the schoolyard. Scrawled across the picture in red ink were the words, "Pay up or she's next." The photograph slipped from my hands and scattered across the floor like fallen leaves. My heart stopped when my eyes landed on the last one. My sweet Emily, her backpack hanging loose on her shoulders, a wide smile on her little face as she played with her friends. And across that picture, in thick red ink, "Pay up or she's next." I couldn't breathe. My knees buckled. And Helen rushed to catch me before I collapsed. "Margaret," she whispered. "Oh my God." Tears blurred my vision. They're watching her. They're watching my granddaughter. She's just a child, Helen. She doesn't deserve this. Helen crouched, gathering the photos with trembling hands. This is beyond Karen now. This is criminal. You need to show this to Detective Harris immediately. They can't ignore this. But my mind was spinning. If Karen and David were bold enough to stalk me, bold enough to drag Emily into their threats, what else were they capable of? I have to protect her, I whispered. I have to keep her safe. Helen shook her head. Not by yourself. This is too dangerous. We sat in silence, the photos spread across the table like a twisted puzzle. Each one was proof that someone was following me. Proof that I was being hunted. And yet another thought gnawed at me. What if Karen wasn't the one behind the camera? What if those two men she brought had taken it upon themselves to tighten the noose? What if things were spiraling out of her control too? The idea made my skin crawl. That night I couldn't close my eyes without seeing Emily's photo. The red ink glared at me like a wound. I sat by the window until dawn, clutching the phone, torn between calling the police and calling my son. But when the sun finally rose, I made my choice. I'm going back to the station, I told Helen firmly. This time they'll listen. If they don't, I'll go to the press. I don't care what it takes. No one threatens my granddaughter. Helen squeezed my hand, pride shining in her tired eyes. That's the Margaret I know. Strong. Fierce. You've been pushed into a corner, but now it's time to fight. I nodded, though fear still gripped my heart. Little did I know, though, that by the time I stepped foot into the police station again, I'd be faced with something even worse, news that would shatter me in ways I never thought possible. When I stepped into the police station the next morning, clutching the envelope of photographs like it was my last lifeline, my legs felt heavy, almost unwilling to carry me forward. The buzzing of the fluorescent lights above seemed louder than usual, and every face I passed blurred in my vision. Detective Harris met me in her office. She motioned for me to sit, her eyes narrowing when she saw how pale I was. "You look shaken, Mrs. Anderson," she said gently. "I am," I whispered, sliding the envelope across her desk. "Look at these. Please just look." She opened it, pulling out the stack of photographs. As she flipped through them, her expression hardened. By the time she reached the picture of Emily with the red ink scrawled across it, her jaw clenched. "This is no longer a family dispute," she said firmly. "This is a direct threat against a child. We'll open a case immediately." Relief washed over me, so strong that tears filled my eyes. For the first time in weeks, I felt like someone was truly on my side. Detective Harris called in another officer, and together they began discussing protective measures. They asked me for Emily's school schedule, her usual routines, and who typically picked her up. My heart sank at every question, realizing how exposed she had been this entire time. "We'll assign an officer to watch the school grounds," Harris assured me. "But Mrs. Anderson, you must also take precautions. Until we know who is behind this, your granddaughter's safety is at risk." I nodded quickly. "I'll do whatever it takes." As I left the station, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. My hands trembled as I opened it. "Nice try going to the police. You think they'll protect you? Pay the $800,000, or Emily will never come home from school." I nearly dropped the phone. They knew. Somehow, they knew exactly where I had gone. Back at Helen's house, I showed her the text. She covered her mouth, horrified. "They're watching you, Margaret. They must be close. This isn't just harassment anymore, it's stalking." Her words sent chills racing down my spine. That evening, I called David. My son's voice was weary when he answered. "David, listen to me," I said, my voice cracking. "This has gone too far. Someone sent me pictures of Emily, your daughter, with threats written on them. Don't you see? This is dangerous. She's in danger." There was a pause. Then, instead of shock, David sighed. "Mom, you're being dramatic," he muttered. "Karen would never do something like that. She's upset, yes, but she's not threatening Emily." "David," I cried. "It's not just Karen. Maybe it's the men she brought. Maybe it's someone she owes money to. But Emily is in the middle of this. You have to believe me." But his tone hardened. "If you had just helped us in the first place, none of this would have happened. You've brought this on yourself. Stop making Karen out to be a villain." The line went dead. I stared at the phone, my chest aching. My own son. Blinded, manipulated, or maybe just greedy, I didn't know anymore. All I knew was that I couldn't rely on him to protect his own daughter. The following days blurred together. Police officers made appearances near Emily's school. But the threats didn't stop. Every morning another text. Sometimes a picture of my house, sometimes of Emily's schoolyard. Always the same message: pay up or else. I stopped sleeping. Every sound in the night jolted me awake. Every shadow outside Helen's window felt like eyes watching me. One night, Helen tried to comfort me. She placed a cup of tea in my hands and sat across from me. "Margaret, you can't break down now," she said softly. "You're stronger than you think. You didn't survive raising a child, working 2 jobs, and holding a family together just to be destroyed by fear. You're a fighter." Her words touched me, but I felt the weight of exhaustion pressing harder. "What if fighting isn't enough this time?" I whispered. Helen reached for my hand. "Then we'll fight smarter. Together." Her loyalty gave me strength, but still, the threats loomed like dark clouds. Then, just as I thought things couldn't sink lower, the next storm hit. I was at the police station again, meeting Detective Harris for updates, when another officer rushed in, whispering something into her ear. Harris's eyes widened. She excused herself for a moment, but I could tell something was wrong. My stomach twisted as I waited, staring at the clock on the wall. When she returned, her face was grave. "Mrs. Anderson," she said carefully, "we've just received a report. Your granddaughter, Emily. She didn't get on the school bus this afternoon." The words punched the air from my lungs. "What?" I gasped. The driver confirmed she wasn't at the stop. "The school says she left the classroom on time, but no one saw her afterward. We're treating this as an abduction." I collapsed into the chair, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst. Emily. My little Emily. Gone. My hands shook as I clutched the edge of the table. "No, no, this can't be happening. Please no." Detective Harris leaned forward, her tone urgent but steady. "We're mobilizing units right now. We'll do everything we can to find her. But you need to tell me, do you believe Karen or David are behind this?" Tears streamed down my face. My mind screamed in denial, but deep down I knew the answer. Karen. Her greed. Her rage. Her threats. All the warnings had led to this. And now my granddaughter's life was in her hands. The world tilted beneath me. My ears rang, drowning out Detective Harris's words. All I could hear was one thought echoing in my head. Emily is gone. I shot up from the chair, gripping Harris's arm. "You have to find her. She's only a child. She'll be terrified. Please do something." "We already are," Harris said firmly, though her eyes softened. "Units are searching the school grounds, the neighborhood, and surrounding roads. We'll issue an Amber Alert immediately. But Mrs. Anderson, I need you calm enough to help us. Anything you can remember could be the key." Calm. How could I be calm when my granddaughter had been stolen away? My mind raced back over the threats, the photos, the red ink scrawled across Emily's face. I shook my head violently. It's them. It has to be Karen and those men. She promised this would happen if I didn't pay. And now she's proving it. Harris nodded grimly. "We'll bring them in for questioning. But if they've taken Emily, the faster we act, the better her chances of coming home safe." Helen, who had rushed into the station as soon as I called her, wrapped her arms around me. "Margaret, listen to me. We'll find her. Emily's strong, just like you. She'll hold on until we get her back." I wanted to believe her, but fear clawed at my chest. Every second felt like a lifetime slipping away. An officer burst through the door with fresh updates. "Detective, we've got security footage from a store near the school. It shows a black SUV parked outside just after dismissal. A girl matching Emily's description was led toward it by a woman." My heart skipped. "A woman? Who?" The officer hesitated. "We're still enhancing the footage, but it looks a lot like Karen." I clutched the desk so tightly my knuckles turned white. Rage boiled up through my grief. She took her. She really took her. Detective Harris stood tall, her voice sharp. "Then we move fast. We'll put out a warrant. Mrs. Anderson, go with Officer Miller. We'll need a formal statement while the search team mobilizes." But I barely heard her. My thoughts were already running ahead, consumed by one truth. My son's wife had crossed a line no one could ever forgive. She hadn't just threatened me anymore. She had stolen the light of my life. And if anything happened to Emily, no amount of money, apologies, or justice would ever make me whole again. The name Karen echoed in my head like a hammer striking metal. My knees trembled and I gripped the chair for balance. Karen, my daughter-in-law, the woman who had sworn she'd ruin me if I didn't pay, had taken my granddaughter. Detective Harris placed a hand on my shoulder. "Mrs. Anderson, I know this is unbearable, but we need your full cooperation right now. The faster we move, the better chance Emily has of coming home unharmed." I nodded quickly, though tears blurred my eyes. "I'll do anything. Anything." Helen sat beside me, her face pale but determined. She held my hand tightly as Harris called in more officers. Maps of the town appeared on a large screen in the briefing room. They marked the school, the convenience store, and the last known sighting of the SUV. "Black Chevrolet Suburban," Harris announced. "Plates partially visible, we're running them now. Units are on the lookout. This is now an official abduction case." Hearing the word abduction out loud shattered me all over again. As the officers moved with urgency, my phone buzzed in my pocket. My hand shook as I pulled it out. A text. We told you. You've got 48 hours to deliver the money. $800K in cash. No police. If you call them, you'll never see her again. My breath caught. They know. They know you're involved. I cried, waving the phone. Detective Harris grabbed it from me, scanning the message. Ignore it. They already crossed the line by taking a child. We won't back off now. But I couldn't ignore it. The thought of Emily alone, scared, in the hands of those monsters, it hollowed me out. Hours dragged on like years. Officers left and returned with updates, but each one was like grasping at smoke. They had traced the SUV through traffic cameras until it left the city limits. After that, nothing. I buried my face in my hands. She's gone, we've lost her. No, Helen whispered fiercely, gripping my shoulders. Don't you dare say that. Emily needs you to believe she's coming back. You're her strength. Her words pierced through my despair. I forced myself upright, even though my body screamed with exhaustion. I had survived raising David alone, I had survived scraping pennies together to feed him, and I had survived betrayal. I would survive this too for Emily. Late into the night, Detective Harris returned with a grim expression. We've traced the license plate. The SUV is registered to one of Karen's cousins. We've dispatched a team to his residence. I gasped. So it was her. She really. But Harris raised her hand. Mrs. Anderson, I need to warn you. If we find them, this could get dangerous. People like Karen don't give up easily. If they feel cornered, they might act out. You need to prepare yourself for whatever happens. The words sank into me like stones. Whatever happens. Did that mean Emily's life hung in the balance? Helen leaned against me, whispering, Stay strong, Margaret. Stay strong for Emily. Then the phone rang. Not mine, the police station's direct line. Harris answered, her tone sharp. Detective Harris. The entire room fell silent as we watched her face change. She scribbled notes furiously, then slammed the phone down. They called, she said, her voice tight. They want a meeting. Midnight. An abandoned warehouse by the river. My stomach dropped. A meeting? What do they want? Harris's eyes locked on mine. They want you, Mrs. Anderson. Alone. With the money. I shook my head violently. No. They'll kill me. They'll kill Emily. Which is why you won't be alone, Harris said firmly. We'll have units surrounding the area. But we need you to go along, to draw them out. Helen gasped. You can't ask her to do that. It's suicide. But as I looked around the room, the maps, the screens, the officers, I realized there was no other way. They wanted me. And if walking into their trap was the only way to get Emily back, then I would do it. I'll go, I said, my voice steady despite the terror inside me. I'll do whatever it takes. Helen gripped my arm. Margaret, please. I turned to her, tears brimming. Helen, she's my granddaughter. If I don't do this, who will? The room erupted into preparation. Officers loaded their vests, checked weapons, and mapped the warehouse surroundings. A black duffel bag stuffed with fake bills was handed to me to act as the ransom. As midnight drew closer, my body trembled with every tick of the clock. Harris rode with me in the unmarked car, her radio crackling with updates from the units hidden nearby. When we pulled up to the warehouse, the night air was thick and damp. The building loomed ahead, broken windows like hollow eyes staring at us. Remember, Harris whispered. We'll be right outside. Keep them talking as long as you can. The second we confirm Emily's there, we'll move in. I swallowed hard, clutching the duffel bag. And if she's not there? Harris's silence said everything. I stepped out of the car, my legs trembling, my heart hammering. The gravel crunched under my shoes as I walked toward the warehouse door. It creaked open slowly, as though welcoming me into a nightmare. And then I saw her. Emily. Her tiny figure sat on a chair in the center of the warehouse, her hands tied, her face streaked with tears. Grandma! She cried, her voice breaking. But before I could run to her, Karen stepped out of the shadows, a cruel smile twisting her face. Behind her loomed the two men I had seen at Helen's house. Nice of you to finally come to your senses, Karen sneered. Now hand over the money, or say goodbye to Emily forever. My breath caught as my eyes locked on Emily. Her little face was streaked with tears, But when she saw me, her eyes lit with a flicker of hope. "Grandma!" she cried again, her voice trembling. Karen stepped between us, her heels clicking on the concrete floor. "Not so fast," she sneered. "The money first." I tightened my grip on the duffel bag. "Karen, she's a child. My granddaughter. Let her go. And maybe we can work something out." Her laugh echoed through the empty warehouse. "Work something out? Oh, Margaret, you really don't get it, do you? This isn't about family anymore. This is about what's owed. You've been living off luck, while we've been drowning. That money should have been ours all along." The two men flanked her, their arms crossed ice cold. One of them tugged at Emily's chair, making her whimper. My heart burned with rage. "You think terrorizing a child will fix your problems?" I snapped. "You've lost your soul, Karen. This isn't about money, it's about greed. You'd sell your own daughter's happiness for a designer bag." Karen's face darkened. She stepped closer, her voice low and venomous. "Hand over the bag." Behind me, the faintest crackle came from the earpiece Harris had given me. The police were listening, waiting. I had to stall. Slowly, I placed the bag on the ground, nudging it forward with my foot. Karen's eyes darted to it, hungry, desperate. She signaled for one of the men to grab it. That was the opening Harris needed. A sudden shout split the air. "Police! Don't move!" Chaos exploded. Officers stormed the warehouse from every entrance, weapons raised. The two men drew back, startled, while Karen shrieked, "It's a trap!" In the confusion, I bolted forward, untying Emily's hands with trembling fingers. She clung to me, sobbing. "Grandma, I was so scared." I held her tight, my tears mixing with hers. "It's over, baby. You're safe now." But it wasn't over, not yet. Because as officers tackled the two men to the ground, Karen slipped into the shadows, her face twisted with fury. And the last thing I heard before she vanished was her chilling promise, screamed into the night. "This isn't the end, Margaret. You'll pay for this, I swear it." The sound of sirens wailed through the night as officers hauled the two men out of the warehouse in handcuffs. Their faces were blank, hardened, as though none of this meant anything to them. But it wasn't them I worried about. It was Karen. She was gone. I clutched Emily so tightly I thought she might break, but I couldn't let her go. Her small body trembled in my arms, her tears soaking into my blouse. "Grandma, are they going to take me again?" she whispered. I pulled back just enough to look into her eyes. "No, sweetheart. I promise you, they'll never touch you again." But as the words left my lips, a knot of fear twisted in my stomach. I wanted to believe that promise, but deep down, I knew Karen wasn't finished. Her voice still echoed in my ears. "You'll pay for this, I swear it." Detective Harris approached, her expression tight but resolute. "We've got the men in custody. They're small-time enforcers tied to gambling debts. Karen must have hired them, or maybe she owes them too. Either way, they'll talk." "And Karen?" I asked, though I dreaded the answer. Harris shook her head. She slipped past in the chaos. "We'll put out an APB, but she knows the area well. She could be anywhere by now." Emily whimpered and buried her face in my chest. I stroked her hair, whispering comfort, though I felt none myself. Helen arrived minutes later, rushing into the warehouse with tears streaming down her face. She fell to her knees beside us, hugging Emily and me at once. "Thank God you're safe," she sobbed. "I thought I'd lost you both." For a brief moment, surrounded by the chaos, the flashing lights, and the smell of smoke and rust, I allowed myself to breathe. Emily was alive. She was in my arms. That was all that mattered. But relief was short-lived. By the next morning, the media had already caught wind of the story. Reporters swarmed outside the police station, cameras flashing as they shouted questions. "Mrs. Anderson, is it true your daughter-in-law kidnapped your granddaughter? Do you have a comment?" I shielded Emily's face as we were escorted inside. My private nightmare had become a public scandal. And with the whole town watching, the weight of judgment pressed heavy on my shoulders. Inside, Harris sat us down. "Mrs. Anderson, Emily will need protection until Karen is found. We'll station officers near your home and her school. But you need to understand Karen is desperate. Desperate people do reckless things. I squeezed Emily's hand. I don't care what it takes. I'll protect her with my life. Harris nodded, then added carefully, there's something else. David was contacted this morning. He claims he doesn't know where Karen is, but... She paused, choosing her words. He also hasn't condemned her actions. He insists she would never hurt Emily. I laughed bitterly, though it came out like a sob. Of course he said that. He's blinded by her. He'll defend her until the day she destroys him. Harris's eyes softened. I understand this is painful, but we need his cooperation. If you can, try speaking to him again. He may know more than he admits. I didn't want to see David. Not after everything. But if there was even the smallest chance he could lead us to Karen, I had no choice. That evening, I went to his house. The lights were dim, the curtains drawn. When he opened the door, his face was haggard, his eyes bloodshot. Mom, he muttered. David, I said coldly. Where is she? His shoulders sagged. I don't know. She didn't come home. The police were here earlier, questioning me, treating me like a criminal. You married one, I snapped. David, she kidnapped your daughter. Do you understand that? Emily could have been killed. He flinched but shook his head. No. Karen wouldn't hurt her. She's under pressure. The debts, the money, everything. It's too much. She panicked. Panicked. My voice rose. She tied up your daughter like a hostage. She hired thugs. That's not panic. That's evil. David ran a hand through his hair. You don't get it. Karen's all I have. If she goes to prison, then maybe you'll finally wake up. I cut in. My chest ached as I looked at him. This was my son. The boy I'd raised, the boy I'd sacrificed everything for. And now he stood before me as a stranger. I hope you realize, I whispered, my voice breaking. If you protect her after this, then you're choosing her over your own daughter. He didn't answer. His silence was the answer. I turned away, tears stinging my eyes. There was nothing left to say. Back at Helen's, Emily clung to me like a shadow. She refused to sleep alone, refused to let me out of her sight. Every creak in the house made her jump. The trauma of that night had carved itself deep into her little heart. I held her close, whispering, Grandma's here. Nothing will ever happen to you again. But as I said it, I remembered Karen's last words. This isn't the end. And I knew she was still out there, watching, waiting. The next morning proved me right. When I opened Helen's front door to fetch the newspaper, an envelope lay on the porch. My stomach clenched as I bent down and picked it up. Inside was a single sheet of paper, the words scrawled in hurried handwriting. You think you've won. But the game isn't over. I'll take back what's mine. Even if I have to burn everything you love to the ground. I dropped the paper, my hands trembling. Karen wasn't running. She wasn't hiding. She was planning her next move. And something told me it would be worse than anything she had done before. The paper shook in my hands, Karen's words burning into my eyes. I'll take back what's mine. Even if I have to burn everything you love to the ground. I staggered back into the living room, clutching the note like it was a snake ready to strike. Helen looked up from the couch, concern etched on her face. Margaret, what is it? I handed her the paper. Her hands trembled as she read. Oh my God, she whispered. She's not finished. She's taunting you. Emily sat at the table coloring, her little brow furrowed in concentration. She was trying to find normal in the middle of chaos. I quickly tucked the paper away before she could see it. She didn't need more nightmares. I called Detective Harris immediately. She's still out there. She left another letter. She's threatening me, threatening my family. Within the hour, 2 patrol cars arrived at Helen's house. Officers examined the envelope, dusting it for prints. Harris herself came, her eyes sharp but full of worry. She's escalating, Harris said flatly. Letters on the porch mean she's close. She's watching you, Margaret. The thought made my skin crawl. Karen lurking in the shadows, eyes on my every move. Emily tugged on my sleeve. Grandma, are we safe here? I forced a smile, though my insides twisted. Yes, sweetheart. The police are here. They'll keep us safe. But even as I said it, I felt the lie taste bitter on my tongue. That night, Harris insisted on moving us to a safe location until Karen was caught. They drove us to a secure house owned by the department, plain and quiet on the outside but rigged with cameras and alarms. Emily curled up in bed between Helen and me, finally drifting into uneasy sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, every nerve on edge. And then, just past midnight, the shrill sound of an alarm shattered the silence. A red light flashed in the hallway. Officers rushed through the house, shouting commands. I jumped up, clutching Emily to my chest as Helen screamed. Through the window, I saw movement. A shadow darting across the lawn, vanishing into the trees. Karen had found us, and she was closer than ever. The alarm's shrill cry pierced the night, jolting me fully awake. Red light pulsed in the hallway, officers' boots thundered across the floor, and Emily clung to me with wide, terrified eyes. "Grandma, what's happening?" she whimpered, burying her face in my chest. I held her tight, whispering, "It's okay, sweetheart. You're safe. I've got you." But my heart told a different story. Karen had found us. Detective Harris burst into the room, gun drawn, her voice steady but urgent. "Stay down. She's here. Margaret, keep Emily close." Helen clutched my arm, her whole body shaking. The three of us huddled together on the bed as officers swarmed through the safe house. Through the window, I caught a glimpse of her, a dark figure darting across the lawn, her hair wild, her movements frantic. Karen. She looked nothing like the polished woman I once knew. She was gaunt, desperate, eyes glinting with madness even in the shadows. "She's trying to get in," one officer shouted. "No," I cried, leaping to my feet. "Don't let her near Emily." The next minutes blurred into chaos. Shouts, footsteps, doors slamming. I could hear Karen's voice outside, high-pitched and venomous. "Margaret, you think you can hide from me? That money was mine. You stole it. I'll take it back. I'll take everything back." Her words rattled the windows and my soul. Emily sobbed harder, trembling in my arms. I stroked her hair, whispering, "Don't listen, baby. Don't listen." Then crash. Glass shattered in the kitchen. Karen had broken through. Officers rushed toward the noise, guns raised, but Karen was faster than I thought possible. She stormed down the hallway, her eyes wild, her hands clutching a shard of glass like a weapon. And she was heading straight for us. I stepped in front of Emily and Helen, my body shaking but resolute. "Stay back, Karen," I shouted. "This ends tonight." Her laugh was hollow, almost inhuman. "Oh, it ends all right. You ruined my life, Margaret. You turned David against me. You think you can keep my daughter? No. If I can't have her, no one will." The glass caught the hallway light, glinting dangerously in her hand. I froze. For a heartbeat it felt like time stopped. All I could think was, this is my son's wife. This is Emily's mother. How did we fall so far? But then instinct took over. I grabbed the nearest thing I could, a heavy lamp from the bedside table. As Karen lunged, screaming, I swung with all the strength left in my bones. The lamp collided with her arm. The shard flew from her hand, clattering to the floor. Officers piled in instantly, wrestling her to the ground as she shrieked and spat like a cornered animal. Emily covered her ears, sobbing. Helen held her close, rocking her, whispering prayers. I stood frozen, the lamp still in my grip, my body trembling from head to toe. It was over. Karen was pinned, handcuffed, screaming curses at me as they dragged her out. But it didn't feel over. Not yet. The police escorted Karen away, her voice echoing through the night. "You'll regret this, Margaret. You'll never keep her from me." The words cut deep. But for the first time I didn't feel fear. I felt pity. Pity for the woman who had let greed, envy, and desperation consume her. Pity for the mother who couldn't see that love was worth more than money. Pity for the wife who had dragged my son down with her. I turned to Emily, who still shook in Helen's arms. I knelt beside her, cupping her tear-streaked face in my hands. "Listen to me, sweetheart. It's over. She can't hurt you anymore." She sniffled, eyes wide. "But Grandma, she's my mom." The words pierced my heart. Emily loved her mother despite everything. And no matter how much Karen had done, she would always be Emily's mother. I hugged her close, whispering, "I know, baby. I know. But sometimes even people we love make choices that hurt us." That's why we have to choose differently. The days that followed were a blur of court hearings, media storms, and difficult conversations. Karen was charged with kidnapping, assault, and breaking into a police safe house. The evidence was overwhelming. David sat in the courtroom, pale and broken. He barely looked at me. When Karen was sentenced to years behind bars, he wept. Not for Emily, but for the woman who had ruined him. I wanted to reach out, to shake him, to scream at him to wake up. But I also knew some lessons cannot be forced. Some people must walk through fire before they see the flames for what they are. As for Emily, the healing was slower. She had nightmares for weeks, waking in the night crying out for me. I sat by her bed, holding her hand until she drifted back to sleep. Little by little, the shadows in her eyes began to lift. We filled her days with laughter, love, and simple joys. Pancake breakfasts, trips to the park, story time before bed. Slowly, she began to believe again that the world could be safe. And so did I. One evening, months later, Emily curled up beside me on the porch swing. The sun was setting, painting the sky with strokes of orange and pink. She leaned her head against my shoulder and whispered, "Grandma, are we happy now?" Tears welled in my eyes, but I smiled. "Yes, sweetheart, we are. Because happiness doesn't come from money. It comes from family, from love, from never giving up on each other." She nodded, her little hand wrapping around mine. I thought of the lottery, the $5 million that had once felt like the answer to everything. But I realized now it wasn't the money that had changed our lives. It was how people responded to it. For some, it brought out kindness, generosity, and joy. For others, like Karen, it brought out greed, envy, and destruction. The true prize wasn't in the bank. It was right here, sitting beside me, breathing softly against my arm. Emily. Family. Love. That was worth more than any fortune. And now, to all of you watching, let me close with this. My name is Margaret Anderson from Dallas, Texas. I'm 70 years old, and this was my story. If you've been with me through every chapter, thank you. Please, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the notification button so you don't miss more stories like this one. And before you go, tell me in the comments, where in the country are you watching from? Remember this lesson. Money can build or it can destroy, but only love lasts forever. Don't let greed blind you to the treasures already in your arms. This is the end of my story.